No, we don't care what you would do if you were Iron Man. We don't care who you are. You're writing Tony Stark. You're not writing yourself in a book. If that's the case, write your own comic with you in it. No one will read it because nobody cares.
What's up, Space Pirates? I am your captain, the Dread Pirate Dr. Disaster, and today we're going to have a look at the comic book industry. Specifically, we have to look at how the American comic industry is collapsing due to the terrible writing at the big two, DC and Marvel.
It was the best of times. It was the blurst of times, you stupid monkey!
Modern American comic book writers aren't exactly Charles Dickens. They're a bunch of narcissistic, attention-starved a-holes who insert themselves into every book they write because nobody has ever challenged their self-indulgences. With that in mind, in this video, we are going to have a look at the top 20 graphic novels from November of 2023, and before we look at that, make your guess as to how many of them were from Marvel and DC. I'll give you a hint, the number isn't very big. In any event, we will follow this up by reading about a comics insider trying to reassure us that the comic book industry in America is doing A-okay.
This is fine. I'm okay with the events that are unfolding currently.
And then we will finish the video off by looking at a clip that is going viral on social media showcasing a man who runs a comic book store talking about the sad state of the industry. After hearing these people out, I want you to ask yourself a question. If you were given the opportunity to open a comic book store of your own with a guaranteed loan and all that other jazz, would you do it?
No. No, man. Shit, no, man.
Alright guys, as usual, please like this video in order to help me defeat the evil algorithm monster, and if you use Twitter or X or whatever you like to call it, then follow me on there. My handle is Dr. Disaster1, and I'd love to see you on there. But now that I've got that out of the way, let's take a peek at the top 20 graphic novels from last month. Now, remember I asked you a minute ago to guess how many of these top 20 were from the big two comic book companies, Marvel and DC. Here's the list, now try to find them. I'll give you a sec. This is like an amusing game of Where's Waldo, where you tell someone to find Waldo in a packed room, but you're secretly snickering because actually Waldo isn't even there. Because yeah, none of the titles on this list are from Marvel or DC. No, people have abandoned Marvel. They've abandoned DC, and it is not hard to see why. I feel like on social media, I am constantly bombarded by posts showcasing the latest woke nonsense that these people are using to try to drum up controversy. Remember when I said earlier that these people are attention-starved narcissists? Well, I meant every word. They are attention vampires. All they can think about is prying your eyeballs away from whatever you were looking at before and getting you to pay attention to them by using algorithmically driven controversy. They don't believe in most of what they're pushing. They just virtue signal in an attempt to be seen as cool in the eyes of their fellow wokesters. They spout corporate slogans constantly because apparently that's what's cool these days. They are willing to ditch common sense in order to be viewed as hip. And because of this, the industry is suffering.
You must suffer.
But the American comic book industry isn't suffering at all, according to one person who works in the industry. And naturally you can trust him because he has a lot of skin in the game.
Sarcasm? You think?
This article is from Bounding Into Comics. The headline says, Marvel Comics executive Tom Brevoort denies industry is dying, instead argues what is likely happening is that the market is changing. In taking the counter stance to everything from concrete sales numbers to shop owners themselves, Marvel Comics executive editor and senior vice president of publishing Tom Brevoort says that the currently desolate landscape of the modern comic book industry is not a result of its dying, but rather the fact that the market is changing. Well, I can play this semantic game too, Mr. Brevoort. Sure, the industry is just changing into a freaking corpse. I mean, this is the kind of soft language that parents use to protect children from harsh truths. Oh, Grandpa's not dead, he's just sleeping. Well, I don't deal in euphemisms when I'm talking with adults, but let's see what else this idiot has to say. The article continues on, Brevoort, whose current list of assignments from the publisher include Captain America Volume 11, Avengers Volume 9, and their current crossover event GODS Volume 1, offered his diagnosis of the industry on November 20th via the 86th overall entry made to his personal Substack, Man with a Hat. His desire to speak on the topic self-reportedly piqued by an unspecified column written by one prominent retailer. Given the time of this post's publication, it seems the catalyst in question was the November 7th piece, Comic Stores 2023, It's Nearly 2024, and I'm More Than Concerned, as penned by Coliseum of Comics proprietor Phil Boyle for both ICV2 and Bounding Into Comics. Brevoort began his response with the assertion, forget about comic books, retailing of any sort is an extremely difficult vocation in 2023, following on the heels of a global pandemic and lockdown that disrupted regular buying patterns. Everybody wants to move on and pretend that nothing happened, that everything is back to normal, but it isn't. The time that will take is a lot longer, if it ever happens, argued the longtime Marvel Comics staffer. Well, I don't disagree that small retailers of all stripes are struggling these days, but perhaps the selfish a-holes at these two big companies could actually help these small businesses, these comic book stores. They could help them out by putting more effort into writing their products and spending less time blaming longtime fans for failures. Just a thought, but efforts meant to draw people in who actually like products like comic books might be more beneficial to these struggling small businesses than preaching at longtime customers, trying their damnedest to replace old customers with a new demographic, and then deriding the old customers for not liking it. Anyhow, he continues, by this same note, I can recall similar conversations as this one taking place all the way back to my entry into the business in 1989. No doubt they were going on before that, particularly in the 1970s and the 1950s, and so on and so on. For whatever reason, he then declared, the comic book field has a stronger pull towards its own mortality than other areas. We somehow delight in predicting the demise of the very thing that we enjoy so much. Maybe that reveals a poor sense of self-worth or something, but also, in any endeavor, if you bet in favor of failure, you're going to be right sooner or later. Nothing lasts forever. Entropy wins. You know, Mr. Brevoort, you're right, dude. Nothing lasts forever. And in this case, the entities soon to be consumed by entropy are Marvel and DC. Because manga is thriving, anime is dominating, Japanese storytellers are not afraid to tell stories. They aren't looking to preach, they don't hate their own culture, they don't hate their own fans, they aren't looking for individual attention, they're just writing. But the big two are digging their own graves. Here lies Marvel and DC, taken down despite being backed by massive corporations and having name recognition you literally can't even buy. I mean, who doesn't know Batman, or Superman, or Wolverine, or Spider-Man. So yes, everything changes, the big two are going down, and most likely, so are most of the comic retailers. But let's hear the rest of what this genius has to say. Brevoort continued, still those folks who were predicting the demise of the field 10 or 20 or 30 years ago would no doubt be shocked to learn that it is still here. The diversity of material, new and old, that is readily available today is astounding and shows no genuine sign of abating. What is likely happening is that the market is changing, and change is almost always scary. But it doesn't have to be the end. It just means that some things are going to be different now, and it falls to us to adjust to those changes. He then wound down his thoughts. People hoping that the comic book industry will somehow revert to being the way it was when they were kids are definitely in for disappointment, but I feel confident in saying that the medium will survive. It continues to grow in all sorts of interesting directions, but the days of a spinner rack in every mom and pop candy store are likely gone forever, mostly because that type of store no longer exists. You know, once again, I agree to a certain extent. The small retailers are dying off and ceasing to exist, but mostly because DC and Marvel are drowning, and in their last gasps, they're reaching out for something to buoy them, and they're dragging down everyone surrounding them. Don't get me wrong, I think that they will continue to exist in the most basic form of the word because of their corporate backing, but for all intents and purposes, Marvel and DC are dead brands. Ultimately, Brevoort concluded, this all comes back to a slogan that I've been threatening to put onto a t-shirt for many years now, but have never actually bothered to do. Comics, dying since 1935. Wow. How clever. He should write comic books or something. But just like it says in the article, there are way too many people in the industry who recognize the threats facing them. Phil Boyle of Coliseum of Comics writes, where did the industry go off the rails? It's not such a conundrum to anyone with 2 active brain cells and a list of back issues they need to complete their runs. Comics, first and foremost, have always been entertainment, wrote the store owner. Sure, collectible entertainment, which justifies the cost to entertainment ratio, but along the way, the immediate sale and false bolstering of numbers through variant covers, convoluted events, and incessant reboots left the considerations of the fans behind. Character swapping, gender bending, and changing sexual orientation of beloved characters fell flat with the Wednesday Warriors who supported the industry for decades. The crowd of new readers the changes were meant to attract didn't translate to a one-for-one swap, leaving a declining customer base. But I'd like to close out this video with a clip from a man speaking from the heart on a subject he clearly has a lifetime of expertise on. And in this clip, he echoes everything that we have been saying in this corner of the internet for a long time, recognizing the problem with modern writers who are more focused on self-aggrandizing than actually telling stories.
Most of these new writers don't have the love of comics like these older writers had. And all they care about is, how can I put myself in the book? No, we don't care what you would do if you were Iron Man. We don't care who you are. You're writing Tony Stark. You're not writing yourself in a book. If that's the case, write your own comic with you in it. No one will read it because nobody cares. People grew up, are growing up loving Peter Parker, loving Miles Morales, loving all these Captain America. We don't need you to put your input in it. Just write Steve Rogers. Don't write Steve Rogers. What would Steve Rogers be if I was Steve Rogers? That's not how it works. But that's again how most of these new people write nowadays. That's why most of the stuff is shit. Because we don't care what you would do, because we don't care about your life whatsoever. Just write a book, get paid for what you do, get paid for what you're supposed to be doing, and make it a good story.
I salute you.
There's not much more to say beyond that. These writers are crap because they don't respect the power of the cultural myths that they are supposed to be the acting custodians of. And the crap writing has transformed into crap sales, which is precisely what they deserve. Thanks for watching, me hearties. If you haven't already, your captain is inviting you to subscribe to the channel and become a part of the crew. Life as a space pirate may not be glamorous, but there's always plenty of booty.